Do you have patterns in your life that are hurting your relationships? A definition of pattern that I saw is something that is done in or happens in a regular and repeated way. So patterns are everywhere in our lives. They happen in nature, naturally occurring. There's man-made patterns. We have patterns in shapes and numbers and colors, and patterns in our routines and schedules and habits. We have eating patterns and sleeping patterns, and we have patterns in our interaction with other people, our relationships. Now, I hear a lot of people talk about the challenges in their relationships, especially in their marriage, using words like, we get caught in this cycle, or we're stuck in this pattern that is hurting our relationship. So some of these patterns in our lives are inspiring, uplifting, and constructive, productive, and others not so much, more harmful and destructive. So people with patterns in their relationships, they want to break these patterns or break these cycles because we're fighting, we're arguing, or we're avoiding. They want to just get away from all that. They want to break that cycle. But I hear people saying that we're just exhausted. We're trying to break this cycle and it's just exhausting. So why is it so hard? Well, I'll tell you what I think. There's a couple of things that make breaking this cycle really hard. First of all, here's number 5. When you identify this pattern and then there's only one thing in the pattern, and that's all you've identified in the pattern is that one thing, and it's usually the thing that is most painful and hurting in your relationship. And so you identify that's easy to identify, but you think that is the only thing in the pattern, and you're trying to stop that. And so here you are in life, and you want to stop the cycle of 5 happening. And you go through life, and boom, there's 5. And you want to break that, but then you keep going, and boom, there it is again. And it just keeps happening. And that's part of the reason, because you think that is the only component in the pattern. So when we think that is the only thing, we get blindsided. And what I mean by blindsided is if you've experienced these situations in marriage, and it happens because we just don't see things the same way, our brains aren't wired the same way, we have difference of opinion, and so things come up. You're going through these situations and you think that everything is fine, and then suddenly there's this surge of intense emotion, and now everything is just spiraling out of control, and now you've got hurt in your relationships. So there are the 2 things of why breaking this cycle is hard. Thinking that there's only one thing in the cycle, and that causes you to get blindsided. So we want to figure out what else is in this pattern or in this cycle. And that's going to take some work. The significance of knowing what else is in that pattern will allow you to know where you're at and what's coming next, because pattern is repeating. It's a regular repeating thing. So that's how you know. So maybe you know that 5 isn't the only thing happening in your life. So maybe the rest of your pattern is this. It's 1 2 1 2 3 6 5 4 5. 1 2 1 2 3 6 5 4 5. There's your pattern. And once you identify that, it allows you to put that out like a timeline in your life and say, okay, here I'm at right here. I'm at 3. Now that I know I'm here, I know that 6 comes next, because that is the pattern in my life. What you want to do is, 5 was easy. You know that's the cycle you want to break. The way that we can go about breaking this cycle is identify what exactly are those hurtful, painful emotions that are coming up. Anger is usually a big one that's in most patterns that are destructive to us. But there's other things as well. You might be experiencing, it could be envy, it could be, you could feel hurt, neglected, stressed, overwhelmed. A lot of different kinds of emotions can factor into this event. that you want to break the cycle from. Identify all those emotions that are happening in here, and then back up. You want to back up. What else besides 5 is happening in your life? What happened just a few minutes before 5? So back up a few minutes before, even a few hours before, even a few days before. We find that we think that things are totally unrelated to this, but if they are bringing up emotions, even at a lesser degree, maybe not so intense as 5, but maybe somewhere in here in this pattern, there are similar emotions that are coming up from things probably unrelated to this. It seems like they're unrelated, but if it's bringing up similar emotions, they are a part of this pattern, and now it's related because they are in this pattern. So maybe before this event happens, maybe a few minutes before, a few hours before, a few days before, there are things that are leading up to that. It could be maybe a few hours before this event. That drive home from work is just intense, and it is just really brings up a lot of annoying, angry, frustrated, discouraging, whatever it might be. All those kinds of things could be factoring in here. Number 6 is happening before 5 every single time. And if you can identify that, then you know to watch out here at 6. Maybe back here, earlier in the week, that person out at your job, they're trying to be funny, but some of the sarcastic remarks they make can be a little bit demeaning and hurtful. And there's some emotion going on with that. And that becomes a part of this pattern. If that's all you do is figure out what else is in that pattern, you have significantly changed things. Because now you know where you're at and what's coming next. And that in itself can diminish the intensity of the emotions that happen in this 5 event that you really want to get rid of. But we know that's not all you want to do. You want to break this cycle completely so that it's gone. So you can focus on 5, breaking the cycle at 5. Now you know the rest of the pattern. You can focus on this. But if that's too big of a monster to tame, maybe it's easier to focus on one of these other areas and work on that. And so what you're trying to do is, we're not trying to change any of these events. To break the pattern is not breaking the pattern of events, it's breaking the pattern of your emotional response to these events. So maybe you can work on, maybe this is a conflict with your children and the way you respond to that, the emotions that it stirs up. And so you can change the emotional intensity that you experience in this event. Maybe you can change how you interpret the joker at your job that is causing those demeaning, hurtful feelings to come up. So you can lessen all of these, and maybe this becomes a 0 and a 1 and a 1. And so you lessen the intensity of the emotions that are building up through this pattern, and that diminishes what's happening here. This is a good way to break these cycles. Know the rest of the pattern and work on changing the emotional response that you have from each of these parts of the pattern will help you break this cycle that keeps happening. So if you want more insights and techniques about how to break this cycle, check out my videos on practicing and being responsible. As always, try this out. If you need help and clarification, you can find us. If you want to comment and tell how it goes as you try these things, let us know. We'd love to hear your success. Thank you, and enjoy breaking these cycles.